What if I told you that everything you've accomplished in your first 40 years of life was just research? That according to one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, you haven't even begun to truly live yet? Carl Jung believed that most of us spend the first half of our lives building elaborate masks, chasing other people's definitions of success, and avoiding the very thing that could set us free, meeting who we really are. Jung said something that challenges everything we think we know about aging and achievement. Life really begins at 40. Until then, you are just doing research. This isn't just a comforting platitude for people approaching midlife. It's a revolutionary understanding of human development that turns our entire conception of life upside down. I find myself both terrified and liberated by this idea. Terrified because it suggests that much of what I've built, much of who I think I am, might be preparation rather than the main event. Liberated because it means that even if I feel lost, even if I feel like I haven't found my true purpose yet, I might simply be exactly where I need to be, in the research phase. We're taught to fear aging, to see midlife as a period of decline, chaos, or crisis. Popular culture is filled with cliches about the so-called midlife crisis, a moment of existential terror, impulsive decisions, and desperate attempts to cling to youth. But Jung offers a radically different perspective. What if this phase of life isn't a crisis but an awakening? What if it's not an ending but a new beginning? To understand this, I need to look at what the first 40 years of life represent. Think of these decades as an exploration phase, a period where we gather experiences, build identities, and learn how the world works. It's a time of rapid growth where we absorb ideas and values from the people around us. But it's also a period of searching. Who am I? What should I do with my life? What will make me happy? These questions drive us in youth, but the answers we find often seem incomplete. In these early years, we're trying to understand life while still trying to figure out who we really are. We build careers, relationships, and families with a focus on external success and social approval. We're learning, struggling, and sometimes failing, and all of this shapes us. However, as Jung suggests, all of this is preparation. It's research. It's laying the foundation for something deeper. When we approach 40, we begin to realize that the old ways of living no longer satisfy us. The priorities that seemed so urgent, climbing the career ladder, fitting in, meeting expectations, begin to lose their appeal. We realize that much of what we've done has been shaped by other people's definitions of success and happiness. This realization, though disconcerting, is also liberating. It's the beginning of a new phase, a process Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of living life on our own terms. This change isn't sudden. It doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, often beginning with small, silent questions. Is this all there is? Am I living the life I really want? These questions can arise during moments of reflection, a career milestone, a significant birthday, or even a quiet night alone. But once they appear, they don't disappear. They grow stronger, demanding answers. And these answers require us to face ourselves in ways we never have before. The world may see this as a midlife crisis. It's easy to label these moments of questioning and change as a breakdown, but Jung invites us to reframe this experience. What if it's not a crisis? What if it's an opportunity? What if this phase of life, with all its challenges, doubts, and changes, is exactly what we need to become the person we were always meant to be? Jung makes an observation that midlife isn't the beginning of the end. It's the start of something much more real, meaningful, and authentic. To fully understand Jung's perspective, it's helpful to consider how we view the first half of life. During this phase, we're focused on building what he called the persona, the external identity we present to the world. This persona is influenced by our upbringing, culture, and social expectations. It's the version of ourselves that seeks approval, fits in, and succeeds in others' eyes. It's a necessary phase without which we wouldn't learn how to navigate society or establish the foundations of adult life. But the persona isn't the complete self. It's a mask, a role we play. And while it has its utility, it's only part of who we are. The problem arises when we become overly attached to it, confusing it with our true self. When we reach midlife, cracks in the persona begin to appear. The roles we play, the successful professional, the dedicated parent, the faithful partner, begin to feel restrictive. We start to realize there's more to us than the image we're projecting. And this is where the real work begins. Jung called this process of going beyond the persona individuation. Individuation is about integrating all parts of ourselves, not just the socially acceptable ones, but also the shadow aspects we ignore or repress. The shadow, as Jung described it, contains everything we reject about ourselves, our fears, insecurities, and unfulfilled desires. Facing the shadow can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it's essential for growth. Only by recognizing and accepting these parts of ourselves can we become whole. In midlife, the individuation process takes on new urgency. The questions we face no longer relate to external achievements, but to internal fulfillment. What really matters to me? What do I want to leave behind? What kind of life do I want to create? These are deeply personal questions, and the answers can't be found in others' expectations. They require us to look inward, to listen to our own inner voice. This inward turn is often accompanied by a shift in priorities. In youth, we're driven by ambition, competition, and the desire to prove ourselves. In midlife, we begin to seek different things: connection, meaning, significance. Life becomes less about doing and more about being. It's no longer about proving our worth, but about living in alignment with our true selves. Scientific studies confirm that this shift is supported by changes in the brain. Neuroscientific research shows that as we age, the emotional centers of the brain become more balanced. We become less reactive and more reflective, more capable of regulating our emotions and facing life's challenges with calm and perspective. This emotional maturity allows us to make decisions based on our values rather than our fears. We stop living on autopilot and begin to live with intention. This doesn't mean midlife is without challenges. On the contrary, it can be a time of great turbulence. The process of questioning and redefining ourselves often involves letting go of old identities, relationships, and goals. This can feel like loss, and it's easy to understand why some people experience it as a crisis. But as Brené Brown highlights, what we call a midlife crisis is often a dismantling, a moment when we're challenged to abandon who we think we should be and embrace who we really are. This dismantling can be messy. It can involve difficult conversations, major life changes, or periods of uncertainty. But it's also a moment of incredible growth. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote that the primary force of human life is the will to find meaning. In midlife, this will becomes more urgent. We're no longer content to live according to someone else's script. We want a life that feels meaningful, even if it's different from what we originally imagined. This means confronting the fears that have held us back: the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear of entering the unknown. These fears can be paralyzing, but midlife offers an opportunity to face them head-on. It's a chance to rewrite the story of our lives, to leave behind what no longer serves us, and to embrace what truly matters. Abraham Maslow described this process as self-actualization, the drive to realize our full potential, to become the best version of ourselves. In midlife, self-actualization takes on new depth. It's no longer about achieving external success, but about finding internal fulfillment. It's about living a life that feels authentic and meaningful. This process isn't easy, but it's rewarding. Studies show that people in their 40s, 50s, and beyond often report higher levels of life satisfaction than people in their 20s and 30s. They feel more connected to themselves and others. They're less concerned with what others think and more focused on what brings them joy and purpose. This is the gift of midlife, the freedom to live on our own terms. Jung believed this freedom comes from embracing the full complexity of who we are. It's about integrating light and shadow, successes and failures, dreams and disappointments. It's about accepting ourselves completely, even the parts we find difficult to face. As Jung wrote in his Red Book, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but it's also the most liberating. This acceptance doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on growth. It means growing from a place of self-compassion rather than self-rejection. It means recognizing that we don't need to be perfect to be valuable. It means understanding that our flaws and struggles aren't obstacles to overcome, but information to integrate. When we finally stop trying to be who we think we should be and start being who we are, something magical happens. We stop exhausting ourselves with performance. We stop seeking validation from people whose opinions don't actually matter to us. We start making decisions based on our authentic desires rather than external pressures. But this transformation requires something that terrifies most of us: meeting our shadow, the parts of ourselves we've rejected, denied, or hidden away. The anger we're not supposed to feel, the sadness we've been taught is weakness, the desires we've been told are selfish, the dreams we've called unrealistic, the aspects of our personality that don't fit the image we've constructed. I used to think that growth meant eliminating these negative parts of myself. Jung showed me something radically different. Integration, not elimination, is the path to wholeness. The very things I judge harshest in myself often contain the keys to my greatest strengths. The person who's afraid of their own anger might be disconnected from their ability to set boundaries. The one who's ashamed of their sensitivity might be cutting themselves off from their empathy and intuition. Jung discovered that we cannot become who we're meant to be while rejecting half of who we are. And this integration requires tremendous courage, because it means admitting that I'm not the person I've been pretending to be. It means acknowledging that I'm more complex, more contradictory, and more human than my carefully curated image suggests. But here's what happens when I finally stop running from my shadow, when I turn around and face the parts of myself I've been avoiding. I discover that what I thought was my enemy was actually my ally. The perfectionism that I've criticized might actually be a deep desire for excellence. The people-pleasing that I've judged might be genuine care for others that just needs better boundaries. The restlessness that I've tried to suppress might be my soul's way of telling me I've outgrown my current situation. This is what Jung meant when he said that life really begins at 40. Not because we suddenly have all the answers, but because we finally start asking the right questions. Not because we achieve some perfect state, but because we accept our imperfect humanity. Not because we become someone else, but because we become ourselves. The research phase is over. The costume party has ended. The real performance, the one where I play myself, fully and authentically, can finally begin. And this performance, Jung promised, is the only one that can truly satisfy the deepest longings of the soul. Midlife isn't a moment to despair about what we've lost. It's a moment to celebrate what we've gained: wisdom, clarity, resilience. It's a moment to build a life that reflects our true self, a life that feels real and whole. It's a moment to stop doing research and start living. In this sense, midlife isn't the beginning of the end. It's the start of something much deeper. It's a turning point, a chance to step into the life we were meant to live. And while the journey may be challenging, it's also profoundly rewarding. So I ask myself, am I ready to stop researching life and start living it? Am I prepared to face the mirror and see not just who I've been pretending to be, but who I actually am? Because according to Carl Jung, that moment of recognition, terrifying and liberating in equal measure, is when real life finally begins. The question isn't whether I'm good enough to live authentically. The question is whether I'm brave enough to find out who I really am when I stop pretending to be someone else. And that discovery, Jung believed, is the greatest adventure any human being can undertake.